This is one of the biggest victories in Los Cuernos history.
Perfect, like great wine, no rules moment. Yep. What I mean by that is just try to think about wine differently.
Paying homage to the restaurants, to the managers that have had positive influences.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Los Cuernos Podcast. We are here and we're going to have some fun. We got our guy Rio here with us. But before we start, and by the way, I'm recording this too.
Sweet.
Right here.
Okay.
But before we start, I just wanted to give him some love. He's a special guy to us, and huge critical piece of what we do here at Los Cuernos. He leads our media team with Dune Media, and it's Rio's birthday today. He's here grinding with us, set this whole thing up. We're here at our office, and there's Rio, and I think we're recording here too. But I wanted to get it here too. So happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Rio!
You're the best. We love you, man.
Los Cuernos fam. The love is all back to you guys.
Woohoo! All right, here we go. Let's do it.
Okay, well, welcome to another episode. Psyched to get into this day's episode and what we've got planned. Something a little bit different than what we've used to kind of done, I guess, on the podcast. Still be asking the guys some interesting questions, seeing if they're cool and hip, but also diving a little bit into the background of these two. Because something that we realized is that a lot of you guys know the Los Cuernos story, but not a lot of you guys know the Zeke story and the Cory story separate from each other as well. Because believe it or not, these guys did have a life before they met each other. And very interesting ones at that as well. So excited to dive into that today, guys. But before we get into all of that, let's just talk a little bit about some things that's been going on at Los Cuernos recently. I want to start off with a little bit of a new segment. What is the favorite spot that you had Los Cuernos at this week?
Formal or informal?
Either or, doesn't matter.
Okay. I was at Terramar. I went to Terramar, the beach spot there right here in Carlsbad. One of our favorite spots and my daughter's favorite spots too. Although you got to know about the tide before that all happens, right? Because you don't have much space to work with. It was on the weekend and it was like just kind of this organic thing that happened, wasn't planned at all. And it was at that right time of the day where I was like, you know what? I could use some vino. And what do you know? I had some in my car. So it was just one of those moments where it's not so often where I'm like on the beach and like I take a sip of something and it's like an amazing, properly aged and finished wine. So it just hit me. I know it sounds silly and weird, but it was a moment.
And again, would not be possible without Los Cuernos, without the vessel that it's in, without the can,
It's true.
Not have been opening a bottle, I hope.
I mean, it's been done. But like, how dumb have I always felt bringing? Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
We digress.
No, it makes sense. What about you, Zeke?
So my older brother, who's like a mentor to me, he moved to Nashville. So he's telling me he's coming to town. I had like a 2-hour window. So from the office, I went to this place called the Terry Cafe. It's an Oceanside. It's an institution. And then we happened to just catch the owner there. So got to have like a glass of wine with my brother before we jumped on a plane out. So we spent a couple hours together. It was just really cool.
Sweet.
Love that.
Oh, I didn't know he was heading to Nashville right after that.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's gone. Okay.
He's loving it.
Shout out to Dan.
Diego, Middle Tennessee State. Let's go.
And that's one of the accounts for Los Cuernos, right?
It is. Terry Cafe, they have 2 accounts for us.
Yeah.
Oh, they have
Thank
two
you,
accounts.
Justin.
Two locations, family owned and operated.
What kind of food can people get there with the Los Cuernos?
They have, it's Asian food. They have ramen. They have sushi. They actually have a really sneaky, great view of the golf course too.
Really?
At Terry Cafe.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, there you go. That's it. If you're trying to get Los Cuernos and you want to have a good time with a sibling, that's where you go.
That's it.
Love it. Awesome. Okay, let's kind of dive into some more stories then from this week. What's been going on in just the Los Cuernos story? Like what's been happening? Any cool things to be had? I know there's always stuff. This is such a loaded question, but yeah, take it away.
So now's the time where I get nervous because I'm like, I think of like, how much of it do I actually share? So much going on. Yeah. Some of it's like potentially confidential or not. But
why don't we talk a little bit about from your perspective the brown bag success?
Yeah. Brown bag's been crushing it. Zeke actually did a post, called out one of the reps, Denver, on on LinkedIn. We haven't been with them that long. And then, we wanted them to get used to the brand, the product before we kind of did anything formal, kind of, salesy with them. And so they could have just a good feel of not only us, but the brand and how it works in market. So that all happened. And then we were like, got together and had an awesome meeting and kind of training with them. And put together like an incentive for them for some new accounts, and they have absolutely been crushing. And so we take pride in endeavoring to be the best partner with distributors specifically. And so we try to be as helpful and communicative as possible. But ultimately, like they are the sales team, and they're so good, and they're getting so much better. But I think just last week they got almost 15 new accounts, and we're I think 3 away currently from hitting the lofty, ambitious incentive.
Yeah.
They've been crushing. Yeah.
Yeah, that means they're going to open 50 brand new accounts in about 7 weeks. I think about being at the distributor and how hard that can be, going this footprint and doing day and out. So we are thrilled with how everything's going. And I will tell you, Cory gets out there a lot and works with her team. And that's a real key, is that us just being able to call each other, we're in market, and keep working it out. It's been awesome.
Yeah, amazing. And yeah, to highlight those facts, that's 6 reps, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the brown bag team. 6 reps, 7 weeks, and almost 50 accounts, you said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And not just any accounts. I mean, some of them are, a few notable ones are, we got another Board and Brew, Sandbar, which is part of the Verant group.
Yep.
They're big time in San Diego, have amazing concepts. We have our eyes on a few others that we believe there's, opportunity and a great fit for Los Cuernos. So.
They added another Flippin' Pizza, which is a franchise. They added about 3 or 4 hotels, which sometimes are a process.
It's amazing. Shout out Brown Bag.
Yeah. Spiro's down in Coronado.
It's in La Jolla.
Yeah. It's go time.
Yeah, that's that's awesome, and super stoked to kind of hear all the success of them. And something, again, I think that's unique about the Los Cuernos brand, right, is that we do hold everybody in our community so close as a family member, whether you're a customer, whether you are an account, whether you're a distributor. It's like you're part of the family, you're part of the network of Los Cuernos as well, which I love. Next thing I wanted to ask you about is, and I want to ask you specifically, Zeke, is Wahoo's. I believe that's some very big news that we have to share.
I think we're the 3rd week of February. This is the biggest victory, one of the biggest victories in Los Cuernos history. Cory and I met the owner of Wahoo's, Wing Lam, about 11, 12 months ago. Mm-hmm. And he's a huge wine guy too, really loves wine, knows his wine. So we met him. We had this amazing wine discussion of all these producers and then restaurant people that he knew. So it was great. And then he tried the wine. He loved it. So Cory and I were like, oh, this is in the bag. That was 12 months ago. But, we continued to work and get out more on social media, as we continue to grow our accounts. And then we've done a lot of events, kind of with Wing and some of these surf, skate events that he does. And he's watched people try the wine. And I think that too, where he's seen the reaction of it and he's like, okay, so
can I pause you real second? I know this is the lead up and I'm throwing a wrench into it.
It's okay.
But I want to build it up a little more, because what Zeke's saying is so true. It took, for us, this is all obvious. It's been obvious for a while, but the reality is it takes time for a lot of people and a lot of accounts, especially ones that are entrenched in so much tradition. So I want to give, even kind of from Wing's perspective, the benefit of the doubt, or, it's a big deal, right? He's got this institution, him and his 2 brothers founded, Wahoo's Tacos based in Orange County, years and years and years ago. And they have 40 locations. So it's not something that they take lightly to make a decision or a change like this. So I just want to give that perspective, because there's so much that goes into it, right? When you make a change like that across across a slew of locations. Okay, so
and honestly, even like props to them too, right? As well as like not being afraid to, when you have like accounts, like you said, they got 40 locations, and everything is a risk whenever they make a change, right? Away from the brand of what's traditional, but them like you said, him adopting it so fast, even though it was 12 months, him adopting it so fast and being so passionate about it, I think for me just shows how well like this product specifically fits with those sorts of accounts, right? And how much like he saw that, he understood that, which is why he's got 40 locations probably, because he understands what it takes to bring in those new and innovative things to his current amazing culture and community of Wahoos, right?
I think the funny story is there's one in Encinitas, and it's kind of like in between where my kids play soccer, so we go there a lot. And the reason why I like it is because they have like fish, beans, and rice, and I'm not giving my kids something fried or something heavy. And I go there a lot. I would look at their selections, literally say, "Oh my gosh, we could do this one day. It'd be in Wahoos. I'd get like this really cool, healthy food and a glass of wine, like what I really want after my kid's soccer game." And so when we spoke, and he said yes, it was like surreal. Like I kind of took it in, and I wanted to let him know personally that I was super grateful that he took a risk with us, because he is taking a risk. Like Cory is 100% right. I think we'll dive in later how we're different. And sometimes I like these things all in math and numbers, but he is taking a risk with us, and he's on the journey with us. And so Orange County is going to be a blast. We can't wait.
It's happening. And there's a whole distributor piece tied with that. You're asking about the week. So, Wahoos it's a big thing for us. And then, there's a lot of synergistic kind of domino effect stuff that potentially happens that we're engaged with too, with, close to securing an amazing distributor.
The dominoes are starting to fall. Starting with Wahoo.
Yeah. But hey, I'm going to double click real fast back into the wing thing. As much as we love him, and we do, I want people to understand the reality of this. And with no offense to his operations, it was almost like what the status quo has been. So prior to, him deciding, Wahoo's deciding to bring us on, largely for his operation and others, cheers, it's wine is an afterthought.
Yep.
Wine is an afterthought. It's like, well, we don't really sell that much wine, so they just don't care about it, right? So that's kind of the idea. But like we talked about so much, especially places like Wahoo's, amazing food. Wine lovers, like, why wouldn't you want wine with it?
Yeah.
And so amazing food. Wine was kind of been an afterthought. But to their defense, they're also not set up to have a traditional wine program. So what you normally have and what they had was, just like a house, this or that was kind of generic, not the best quality wine. And then you wonder why, you don't sell much wine. But just to be really honest and frank, once we, were kind of established a lot of, a good relationship with Wing, and we were talking back and forth, it finally came up, and we're like, I think Zeke said it, and it really, it came to a head, and he hit it on the nose, but he was like, Wing, you love wine. Would you ever drink your wine?
And what he said was, oh my God, this is going to be on camera. This is going to be great. He pointed at us and he goes, "You got me."
Yeah. No, there was a reason I did the dramatic pause, because that's exactly what it was. And so it's just that. It's a perfect, great wine, no rules moment. Yep. What I mean by that is when you got to take a step back and just try to think about wine differently now that there's, incremental opportunity to just have a great, fresh glass of wine wherever or with whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're really dominant in Orange County. And I sold wine, spirits in Orange County. It is an enormous wine market, and literally hundreds and thousands of bottles flowing out of all the supermarkets there and all the restaurants. And so I think this step change is going to be good for the industry by just making a higher quality available across the board. And I think Wing and Wahoo's is going to be leading that, and they're going to be serving really good wine with their food. So super excited.
Yeah, we got a few other notable counter service chains that are in the wings.
Yeah.
And that we'll be hopefully reporting on next time.
Stay tuned for the next episode. No, we're done with the episode. No, I love that. And one thing I wanted to talk on with that, and maybe you guys, I'd actually like a little bit of input before we get into kind of your guys' background is, okay, so since COVID, restaurant, I don't want this to be too salesy, but since COVID, restaurants and counter service, restaurants, all of that sort of stuff have been redefining the experience of going to have food, right? And I think what you just described there, Cory, is a great example of how it doesn't have to be overly complex. You can take something that people already love, wine, and then you can give it to them in a can, which traditionally has not been viewed as good, but now
for good reason,
really, really great experience, right? And I think that's something that I would love to just get out to like accounts or potential accounts that are watching this. This is like, you don't have to overthink that new experience. You don't have to overthink, like as a customer who eats out regularly in Encinitas, goes to Nectarine Grove all the time, one of our accounts, and Hargo's Tacos and all of that sort of stuff. It's like, I love those places because they're unique, they're interesting, they're family owned. I love supporting them. But at the same time, it's like, it's fucking amazing food, right? And this then goes with it. And then I have an amazing drink to go with that as well, you know? And for me, that's why I would keep going back. If they brought in a new product like Los Cuernos every week, I'd be there all the time, So it's like, that's kind of something that me as a consumer and not on the wine side, like you guys just wanting to consume great food and drinks, that's why it works for me, right? A lot of the time.
Yes, you're going to make me burst from the seams because I did have experience just like this the other day. Shake Shack, actually there's this big strip mall here in Carlsbad, Cayo Costa. And if I'm picking food and I'm looking through it, I am thinking about the beverage I have. I'm going to drink because Cory and I spend like 12 hours a day doing this. And then like we have the weekends where we got to watch kids and our family. And this is like a chance for me to kind of relax. And so Shake Shack, you go in, you order from a kiosk, and they have a really good canned wine. It's actually not ours, but Danny Meyer, who's a renowned chef, and he's very meticulous on details. They private label their own wine, but it's good. And it's actually better than most places. So on that day, on a Sunday evening, I can get like this A+ burger and a glass of wine. I don't want to drink anymore. And that is the perfect amount for me. And I think that type of experience too is like quick and it's convenient and it's really good. So yeah, Shake Shack.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to dive in real quick before we get on to kind of your guys' background. It's going to be a quick one. Cory, you have been expressing some incredible dance moves online and been going very viral recently.
Yes.
I think that's a great segue for us to kind of dive into your background before
Is
the
not
wine.
dancing. Is not dancing.
Oh, okay, not dancing, but being on stage, acting, all of that sort of stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of, where you were raised to begin with?
Sure.
And then we'll kind of get into you moving out to LA and from there.
Cool. Love it. Did not expect this, by the way, but love it. So I knew I wanted to be an actor since I was like in third grade. It was like so many people are like, oh, even when they're in college or, just about to graduate, they're like, they still have no clue what they're going to do. Right. So one of the things I'm most grateful for is the fact it was so obvious and I was so determined from when I was very, very young. So it was just, that's what I was going to do. So much so where I almost was tempted to move to LA after high school. I went to Plano in Texas. So and I had seen some, had a friend of a friend who had awesome success coming out to LA, booked some big soap right after high school. And I was super tempted, but I was like, okay, no, I got to be smart. Let me get a degree. And, which the whole point was to never use it again, by the way.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. And, well then, it was also, it was also Austin, and I loved that city. So I was like, okay, I'll go to school to Austin for 5 years, right? And still have a blast. So that was that. And then as soon as I graduated, I moved to LA to act because, that's what I wanted to do. So But like for me, it was a little different. I didn't, I don't have like the famous uncle, or I don't have, I didn't know anybody or have any connections or any hookups in LA. It was just kind of came out cold. So, I spent the first year doing kind of anything and everything I could to make progress, whether it's like submit to, submit to agencies, or, train, or do free non-union student films, or whatever it is I could, train, build my resume, kind of continue refining my craft. Meanwhile, trying to attain representation. I digress, but that took me a year, and then finally I had an agency kind of give me a shot. And I tell you what, one of the best decisions I made after I got representation was interning for them. I was like, oh my God, okay. I was in the restaurant at the time. I was like, I can do this where I can give a day a week where I go up there and just whatever they need, just serve, like whether it's take out trash, answer phones, and it evolved to much more. But just that relationship, and with kind of no strings attached, kind of meant the world. And then we just got to know each other, and then trust is built. And now all of a sudden I'm submitting people. I get the leftover auditions from like the big, cool, fancy booker, the guys that would book all the stuff that were in my kind of similar style or look or age or whatever.
Cory, what's a leftover audition? What's that mean?
A leftover audition is, it's very, very meticulous. I'll be very brief, but like let's say it's a commercial audition, a breakdown goes out, whether it's like, the client, the brand, the casting director has an idea of the commercial they want to make. So let's say it's one commercial with one main guy, just for simplicity's sake. So they do a description of that character for that spot, and they send it on this wire. It's called like the breakdowns, which goes to all the legitimate, largely SAG franchised agencies, and then they submit digitally all their talent within their stable that fits that specific role, right? So this one example, this one commercial for for this one role of this, kind of principal male in it, they typically receive approximately 4,000 submissions of guys that are talented, great. Most of them are SAG, they have representation, they move from everywhere to go here to do that. So 4,000 just for one role that can seemingly be insignificant on a commercial, but it's such a big deal and it's so competitive. And then from there, they come in, audition, do the whole thing, narrow it down to like about 40. And then you come back in again, 40 people. And now there's casting director, there's producer, there's directors, agency guys, there's kind of all the stakeholders in the room. And even though they're ignoring you most of the time and on their computers, it's still a big thing. And then they usually put 3 people on a veil, and you still have to be the one to book it and be the guy in the commercial. So that's kind of a little snapshot, but that's the impetus of me moving out to California. And I'll kind of close with this, and we can get into whatever later, whatever we want. Had a lot of fun, no regrets. Very fortunate, but. The biggest thing is when I did that, especially at first, I needed supplemental income with flexibility, just the biggest thing, because you have to have your situation and your foundation set to even give yourself a chance to do what it takes to do it. And so for me, that was, this kind of comes full circle to, when I started working at L'Opera, where I met Zeke and my wife. And so I was doing that, in tandem for at least at the beginning. So I could have the flexibility at a moment's notice. Actually, this is a funny story. There was a time where we were at Da Vinci, which is the fine dining Italian restaurant that we left L'Opera to go run.
Hold on, got to give a little color here.
Okay.
It was a 300-seat restaurant, marble floors, giant windows. We had like 400 wines by the glass. It's on the airport. We actually had helicopter rides that you could come and have dinner and get helicopter rides. So this is a bougie place.
Oh, in the wine cellar above the bar?
Yeah, it was.
Where like you would see, like you could be in the whole place and you would see me or whoever it was. in my suit, like climbing up a like going up to the top, because the wine cellar was it was elevated above the bar, so where it was seen throughout the whole restaurant.
I cut you off. So you were at Da Vinci. You were going to do something with a commercial, or
yeah, no, I was at Da Vinci, and at the time, we were running it, and at the time it was just him and I. So there was a chunk of months where it was like only him and I think he worked like 35 days in a row or something, and oh man, this is probably not one of his best days, because I was like, hey, it was that morning. I got a call from my agent. It was a big Dell like Super Bowl commercial. They were shooting in Argentina. At the callback, I knew it was going to be shot in Argentina. They checked my passport, blah blah blah. I thought it had passed. The shoot date had already gone, but this is the industry, right? I get a call from my agent that morning. She's like, at 9 a.m. I was just waking up. She goes, I'm negotiating your deal with Dell. They need you at LAX by noon. And you're going to be in Argentina for 5 days shooting a Super Bowl commercial. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds great. And so I call this guy, and I'm like, I was like, like supposed to work that night. I'm like, so about that. I was like, I got to go to Argentina. So anyway, he doesn't hesitate. He's the best. He sucks it up. He was like, oh, awesome. He was just stoked for me.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he was sucking it up, back at the home front. At the restaurant. So.
I had to call my wife and say, hey, I know I'm supposed to be off these 2 days. Cory's going to Argentina for 4 days, shoot a commercial. But I'll tell you my memory of that. It was such a big deal. We were so excited that you got it, because like the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl commercials. So we knew that he did a Super Bowl ad. And I remember all of our friends gathered on a TV watching it. And then he like, Rio, put this video on the podcast. He looks so cool. He's kind of flowing his hair, and then this girl randomly comes out and like, remember the girl?
Oh yeah. I had to. Yeah.
Anyways, we'll put it on the podcast. It's an amazing commercial. Del Red. I remember just like cheering it on while watching Super Bowl.
They made a girl kiss me, and that's kind of what I had to tell my wife. I was in Argentina. I didn't know this was going to happen. Concept. How things evolve and change. But yeah, you just watched the spot. And I was like, hey.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about, I want to stay on you,
Sure.
Cory, for a second. So, because, after you saying, you'd known you wanted to be an actor for a long time as a kid, you came out to LA to do that, right? And like you said, it's extremely competitive to kind of do, particularly nowadays, but I'm sure back in your day too. And you went from that very quickly to booking Super Bowl commercials and stuff. So tell us a little bit about that as well, because you have shot some amazing commercials that I've seen personally that you've showed me and stuff like that. I'm sure we'll show some of those in the podcast. So just give me like your top 3 commercials that you were in.
Take a little step back. I also had representation for film and television.
Yep.
Did, that too. Tried to produce stuff like always. But commercials was kind of like the thing. So let's see, 3 favorite ones. So the Dell Super Bowl commercial was awesome, just because of the scope of it. And I got to go to Argentina. I have some fun wine stories from that experience too. One of my first kind of big ones that, my first big notable one where actually I was going through the security at LAX, and somebody was like, I was going through TSA, and they were like, you're that dude from that Singular commercial. I was like, so it's how long ago? It was Singular before it was AT&T. I did a spot where I was like, I did a spot with like, it had like Ludacris, Pussycat Dolls, and it was a lot of fun. It was super cool. And, one of the big, I think, who was it? Oh, it was one of the big famous directors too. Actually, funny note about that one, when I was on set, it was a night shoot because we shot in a grocery store in LA. And so just have access to it. It's easier at night. And the casting director, Anissa Williams, love you, Anissa. Hope you're well. She was great. She was on set that night, and one of her friends was there, and she was like, and it was at night, so it was kind of dark, and I was walking from where they had us out in the parking lot in the trailers to kind of set. She's like, Cory. And she had her friend. She was, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. I want to introduce you to my friend. And I was like, awesome, cool. And I was like, hey, Cory, nice to meet you. And he was like this big dude. Couldn't see him all that well. I could tell he's like a big dude. And he shakes my hand, and I will never forget. He goes, I introduced myself, said my name, and he was like, Michael Clark Duncan. And I'm like, oh my God. Like Green Mile is one of my favorite movies. So anyway, I thought that was cool. And I was like, cool. So he was literally there just to like hang out and watch us shoot whatever.
Pretty cool.
Whatever we were doing. So
I love that. So that was your first.
that was like a first big one. So Singular was big, Dell, and then I don't know, you could take your pick.
One of my favorite ones of yours, and this can be your third one.
Okay.
Maybe tell us a bit about it. Is the Ewok one?
Ewok. So that was fun because it was funny, right? That was like a Star Wars promo. I forgot which network, but this one was cool because I got to shoot with an Ewok, the real Ewok. So, I had no part of it, but they were talking with George Lucas.
He's the guy.
George. So literally directly with him and his team, because what I had learned is he is so, no surprise, he is so, and not in a bad way, he's obsessive and so particular over his brand, right? His assets. So that's why it's so crazy, to the point that when I first got to set, I knew I was going to be shooting with an Ewok. When we first got to set, I knew the producers came up to me and they said, hey, I know this is going to sound kind of weird, but just so you know, the Ewoks, it was like the real uniform or whatever, but they had a short person play, a short person actor actually inside the suit to play the Ewok. They said, just so you know, you are never, under no circumstance, ever able to address the actual person in the costume.
Oh, wow.
Or talk to that person. It was like such a peculiar formality
to respect them being an Ewok.
100%. Like
Wow.
I couldn't even pretend that it wasn't like an actual real Ewok, even if we're like at craft services,
What are craft services, Cory?
Oh, it's where the actors and the crew eat little snacks in between the
Bougie
actual
snacks, all this food
in the middle, in between like the actual catered meals. So that was fun. I got to work with Ewok. He was super cool. And I felt bad because, anyway.
You couldn't call him like Larry or James?
No, I couldn't call.
What did you, if you needed to address him, how did you address him?
Just.
Ewok?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll see in the spot, I kind of made up the dialogue, but I called him I was like, hey, doggy. So that just came out.
That was 100%. You made all that stuff on the spot?
I made some of that up.
Oh,
yeah, the
sweet.
doggy part. The good directors are usually cool with that. They let me do my thing or do some.
There you go. So
Yeah.
we have established your background then, Cory, and where you kind of came from in the industry that you're in. I love looking back through some of those commercials too. So excited for our audience to see them. Okay, so let's switch gears now from you, Cory. We know your background. We know where you came from before La Opera, for Da Vinci. Zeke, over to you. Let's hear a little bit about your background and what you were doing before all of that.
So I met Cory in 2001. So before that, if I go back to the beginning of like the journey, let's see, some of my first jobs ever were helping my older brother do a paper route. Yeah, it's very old. Union Tribune. He would take the papers, and then I would get there in the morning. We'd stuff them all up, rubber band them all, and he would ride his bike, and I would like run by him, or I would sit on the bike, and he would literally throw papers into people's yards. This just sounds totally bizarre now. And then on the very rare rainy days in San Diego, we'd have to put them in plastic bags. And I'd be very annoying, but as a kid, but let's see. So I my very first job, I worked in an ice cream parlor, Baskin Robbins.
Honest question. Did you notice at all like a difference or an improvement or impact that job specifically had to your right forearm?
My brother did a lot of the throwing. I was weak.
No, I'm talking about the ice cream shop. You're scooping.
Oh my God.
I don't know. This
is so funny.
I've always thought of that. I was like, if I actually worked at an ice cream shop,
it's actually a skill.
My forearm would get sore.
I was tiny. So I try to think about it. If I was 16 years old, you guys don't laugh at this. 16 or 17 years old, I was probably 5'5", like 103 pounds. Something like tiny. And then you go to Baskin Robbins, and then I'm seeing them scoop it. So it was hard. I like a little weak arm. I'm like, but yes, my arm definitely got stronger, and it was a technique.
Love it, man.
It was great. I
So
think
if you can't afford going to the gym, just get a job at Baskin Robbins.
Yeah.
Get jacked
That's it.
forearms. I
Yeah,
guess.
maybe the suggestion is switch up arms just to
Did
keep
you?
it
Yeah.
balanced.
Did you ever did you ever dual weld like scoops? Could you ever do it with both hands?
no, I was what they call right-handed bandit. It was right hand only. That left hand is not strong enough to scoop. I'm a right-handed scooper.
Okay.
Really good with the pralines and cream, vanilla.
Okay. There's still hope. There's still
There's
hope.
dope.
Yeah.
So from that job, I actually went to work at a liquor store by the beach. So that would have been like my first experience with wine and spirits. It's kind of funny. And we'll go into this, the differences between me and Cory. Like you can hear he's an actor, I would say kind of creator. He's great, like on film. And just kind of his presence. Well, for me, I'm kind of robotic and a little more math driven. But so going to a liquor store, it's like this giant grid of products.
To you. For you.
I'm like, oh, look, here's
Well,
all.
it's just a math problem. I'm like, no, it's a liquor store. What are you talking
like,
about?
oh, look, there's all these products. Like you're selling salty snacks, you're selling beverages, you're selling beer, you're selling alcohol, food products. They all have different price points. They have customers. So just years of like a year of doing that, you get a really good understanding of branding and packaging. And so I learned a lot about what people purchase, and you meet people all the time, and I would just see what people bought. So unknowingly, that's been like one of the things that really influenced me was just seeing that. And then I went from the liquor store I used to work at, which is in South San Diego, to one in Coronado. So it was a different demographic. They drank a lot of wine in Coronado. And I got to see that as well too. And then from there, from that liquor store, Coronado, I went to a restaurant called Marie Callender's. I don't think they're out here anymore, but they're probably more in the Midwest. It's like a classic, you say American food?
Yeah, it's
Cornbread, turkey
cafe,
dinner.
brunch type of, yeah.
That would have been my first experience waiting tables. They had Kendall Jackson Chardonnay.
Oh, so that's how you got into restaurants.
Restaurant industry,
Okay,
yes.
cool.
That was
Calendars.
my first restaurant job.
So you kind of, and so you came into the restaurant industry kind of early. That was your kind of background of it. It's kind of career. That was where you started in. But for you, it was kind of, you came in it as a secondary. It's like, I need supplemental for.
Kinda. I mean, it's a good question. Actually, for me, the restaurant stuff came first. So if you take a step back when I was in Texas, before I came to LA to act, my parents are amazing. I had such an amazing upbringing. I'm so grateful. But, we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So since, when I started working when I was 15 and went full-time job. So even during high school, I had to work full time, or at least I chose to, just for my own situation, right?
Yeah.
So I quickly realized that the restaurant was the way to go. But in Texas, you can't serve alcohol or be a bartender or a server until you're 18. But for me, I was like, I had already kind of identified that was like the way I thought would be cool to like be flexible and make cash. And so I started working at TGI Fridays.
Yeah.
So I started working at TGI Fridays when I was 16 because even though I knew I couldn't serve yet, I started as a host, by the way. No shame with that. I am so grateful. The host position in a restaurant gives you a bird's eye view. So for me, I was like, I just want to learn how it all works. And in doing so, establish, relationships with everybody and just kind of get to know the crew. So by the time I turned 18, it was like, I was like, had, an awesome station and place on the schedule and shifts like teed up for me, and I was ready to go. So it was, I was already familiar with the staff, with the kitchen, with how the expo line worked, the POS.
The flair?
Yeah. Oh, the flair and the buttons.
You know what flair means? No.
No, TGI Fridays is known for like the flair, especially back in the day. They're, I think they still wear the same uniforms, but it's obviously a big national chain. But for me, you guys know we kind of eventually kind of went into fine dining and all that. But to be honest, like the kind of the corporate commercial stuff, like Fridays, oh my gosh, amazing kind of training, amazing programs. But more than anything, it taught me how to deal with volume, which is, as a server, it's huge, right? I would 8 table stations, do 3 or 4 turns, and just do ungodly amounts of covers. And
you just gave so much industry knowledge. I'm going to translate that for somebody. So most waiters or servers could only handle 4 to 5 tables. So if you do 8 tables, it's a lot because you have 8 groups of like 2 to 4 human beings asking for things and you're getting them food. And then he said 3 turns. So that means a table leaves and someone sits it again. So if you're going to do 3 turns, that means it's like a very busy night and you're just constantly cranking out the volume. Okay.
Yeah. And that's it. So it was like TGI Fridays. And then what I learned, because they had these amazing beverage programs, I worked at the TGI Fridays. It was the second highest volume one in Texas, right there on, not that but like right on 75 and Plano Parkway.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And, I know that one. Yeah.
and so, my first year that I worked there, I was so fascinated. It was bartending championship. So Fridays put on what they called the bartending championships, and they did the national competition was at the location that I was at that particular year. So all these top-notch kind of senior bartenders came in, and they were doing, you've probably seen the movie, right? But they put all that to shame with Tom Cruise does all that. They're doing all that. And I was like, oh my God, so cool. Long story short is I realized very, very quickly that there was a direct correlation between the wine knowledge I had, especially after Fridays. And one of the reasons I moved on from Fridays and went a different direction when I landed in Austin going to school at UT was that I realized there was a direct correlation between the wine knowledge I had and the amount of money that I made. That's why for me it was like a very specific thing to try to land at a restaurant that had an amazing chef, amazing food, and amazing wine program for that reason.
You found that center of that Venn diagram, huh?
Yeah.
Well, and now counter service restaurants can have that same experience that you just told. Oh my God.
Great wine.
Oh my God.
Okay. So
I came back from those days from UT.
So I was waiting tables because of college and similar to I don't want to go sob story.
Where did you go to college?
I went to college. I did 2 years at San Diego State.
Uh-huh.
But I had all my friends that I grew up with, and I was not a great student.
Okay, but hold on. It doesn't have to be a sob story. It doesn't have to be a sob story, but take a step back and give them a little insight to beforehand. Like where were you going to go with that? Or what did you want to say?
I was just say this. Like, I had to work. Like, we didn't have money. So I had to work. So even through college, I paid like my college and took some loans the whole time. So I was working recalendars, and then similar to Cory, you learn a lot of basics, you get a lot of customer management, and waiting tables is such a unique job because of all things bouncing on your head. But there was a better place that was a little more high end. You can make more money. It was called Los Coronado Bay Resort. So that was my first time actually working with a great chef, Cory. Recalendars, not in a mean way, but you get these rotating kitchen managers. They were called kitchen managers. They weren't chefs.
Yeah, it's corporate.
I'm going to give a shout out. Chef Cummings, first person I ever knew. I believe he liked Man City. How about that?
Oh my God.
You're going to love it.
Cannot be trusted.
No,
Cannot
he
be
loved
trusted.
Man City like in 1999.
Yeah,
That's
they were
when you're
a
like,
terrible club then.
so
That's impressive.
he's had a good run. He had such a presence to him, Chef Cummings. He had your accent, and he just ran this place. I had to take I had to study all this food. I learned about capers. I had to study all wine.
You had to learn about capers?
I did. I was like, what's a caper? But all of the mesclun greens, different types of salads, different types of cheeses, they took it so serious. And so doing that, and then I got to learn about wine, I still didn't learn enough. And so I watched the other servers do it, and I was like, oh man, I got to learn this, because I'd sell like 4 dinners, for certain prices. The dude's selling $200 bottle of wine, and I know how much money he's making. I know how much money I'm making. So that was kind of the impetus. And then I'll go back to it, that I wasn't a good student because I was with all my friends from high school partying in Pacific Beach and downtown in Tijuana, and my Asian mom was not thrilled. So I transferred to Long Beach State, and I became a good student again. And that is where I met Cory at Lopper. Literally the first month I was there, I met Cory. So that's
Wow.
kind of crazy. I met Cory and his future wife at the restaurant and met my wife all in 4 months. It's crazy.
All in 4 months?
All in
of
4
that
months.
4 months?
Yeah,
Holy
yeah.
moly.
So it felt like it was destiny. And I'm going to segue this thing crazy, but I wanted Cory to go move to San Diego for years, for years. And he didn't want to come. And then,
I don't know if that's true. It just wasn't.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
timing, whatever. But
Yeah.
but we're here now and we're doing this. So yeah, that was really formative for me, getting to work on all sides of the industry.
I find it really interesting when you guys are talking about that sort of stuff as well, because there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences, throughout it as well. But I think also paying homage, I don't know if you guys feel about this as well, like paying homage to the freaking restaurants.
Yeah.
Because I worked at Pizza Hut when I was growing up, right? I worked at different restaurants. Everyone has worked at some point in their career at those entry level, restaurant stuff, being a host, being a server, then climbing the ladder of going into different restaurants that are higher end and that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, paying homage to the journey that is those restaurants and how important they are, man, to like culture for us in terms of going out and having good food now that we're not serving at those places, but then giving the opportunity for young people to like understand what it takes to organize yourself, to show up on time, and to do just all those fundamental things. It's like,
Rio,
I don't know,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
right?
This is one of the soft spots that Zeke and I have, and it's for restaurants, for restaurant industry guys and gals. So many people, and we realized this when we were, throughout our journey, kind of later when we were in corporate, there was a time we were at a company where we were hiring a lot of people. We were scaling and part of a big kind of expansion out west. And we often would hear, it became like a pattern where people would almost feel timid or scared to bring up when we were talking about their past and their experience. They're like, I was like a server, I worked at a restaurant. We're like, no. What do you say to them?
Don't apologize.
Be proud. Be proud of that. There's unbelievable skill sets that are curated and developed just by naturally doing that. It is not for the faint of heart. Anybody that's ever done it can attest to it.
Yes.
And it's so much so I attribute a lot of like just who I am because of that. And I even have the conversations with my daughters all the time. Like, even though they can do whatever they like, I think there's so much value in it. Because, this world is just all about people anyway, right? And so, if you really think about, and Zeke probably, in his kind of math, robotic, nerdy world has so much better way of saying this, but the repetitions, the attrition, if you think about how many new people that you actually see and come in contact with, that you have to establish a rich, deep, organic rapport with in minimal amount of time. Sometimes instantaneously, within a minute, 30 seconds. That's a skill.
And one thing I want to say on that too as well. So I worked at Pizza Hut, right? I lost like 4 months. I sucked.
Okay.
And I worked in the kitchen. So I was on the conveyor belt line and stuff like that. But the one thing as well that it taught me, and I definitely attribute a lot of my team building sense of like working towards the same goal to this sort of like kind of role. I also worked at an amazing grocery store, which had the same sort of culture. Okay. But for me, restaurants are the most raw sense of pure teamwork, like pure teamwork. There's nothing like at a restaurant when it's like, 7 p.m. on a freaking Friday or Saturday and it is just bustling. It's just like no one can work fast enough, whatever it is. There is no more raw sense of team than those moments I've ever had in my life.
I want to like break the table right now.
The best and the worst. I think those are the best moments, but also some of the moments where the waiter nightmares are birthed.
No, but we're in the kitchen and we're just like, we got a little bit of music on and we're just flying out. For us, it was pizzas, right? We're just, we're doing the toppings, fly it in the oven, fly it in the oven, fly it in the oven. And it was just constant work. And that like those moments I always still look back on now of just that purest sense of like, whatever that person, the waiter, the waitress, the guy next to me on the line, whatever that person needed that moment in time, I was going to do it.
You
I was
knew-
there for them. And
You knew you were in it together.
exactly.
Yeah,
And that was like the coolest thing. And we even had like, you know, when people would spill like a milkshake all over a guest.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God. And we're like, what's going on? But everyone was in it together and we'd help each other out. Managers would step in. And definitely those moments for me, I still look back on as like, yeah, purest sense ever of teamwork in those sorts of moments. And I think, like you were saying, back to what you were saying, basically, it's like, yeah, paying homage to the fact that like they're just such good places to like have a little bit of experience and time from. And you shouldn't be embarrassed to be able to say, yeah, I did that.
A server or bartender or even work at a coffee shop. What Cory mentioned, those customer interactions are teaching you a real life skill. And as we've gone through history now, we're in this crazy moment of ChatGPT and the internet, all the information is actually out there. So information and holding it used to be the secret. So having people skills more and more and more in the age of cell phones is a huge separator for people. Cory and I, we love salespeople just like we love waiters. By the way, waiters and bartenders are salespeople. And so when they have that experience, and Cory did an amazing job of talking about the nuance of meeting someone over and over again. And when the first 5 seconds, you're looking at their shoes, clothes, you're using their inflections, their voice points, you're trying to figure out, you know, how can I really serve this person? So there's two parts to it. The just actual service and teamwork that you talked about, like a restaurant is a modern miracle. A human being.
Wow.
No,
Look at this.
hold
I love
on.
this. I love this.
If you run a restaurant, right, a human being walks in. So before they do, there are products ordered the day before in a kitchen. And there are 4 or 5 suppliers go bring all those products together. There are alcohol products, beverage products that all get brought together. There's human beings that come in there, and they all work to time when you walk in, Rio, to make sure that you get a hot plate of food and beverage and then cycle you out. And then Cory's like 3 turns. So it really is a confluence of the distributors, the suppliers, the location, and the human beings that live all there. So restaurants are literally a modern miracle that we can go get food. Food is very hard to make. Anyone that cooks up for themselves and cleans for themselves, thank you, restaurants. Thank you, great restaurants. I don't have to do dishes. You don't have to cook. It's
That's true.
amazing.
It is. It is.
And I think my last part, one of my biggest learnings in the restaurant industry was the variability of managers. And so I know when I had a great manager on the floor, I want to give a shout out to people. It's funny. Victor was one of the guys I worked in Recalendars, and then Nicole, who I worked at L'Opera. They could help you out, and they run the floor, and they keep a good energy. The second you get a bad manager, it's the same exact job, and it's way worse. And I thought about that as I'd watch them come in, and I was working my shift. Cory and I are really good at what we did, so we knew what was good and bad, and so that really affected me in the sense that I never wanted to be the person that lowered the level. So if I'm going to help manage people, then I want to see, hey, how can I help you? How can I serve you? How can we make this whole thing grow? And it's just so obvious when you get a bad manager.
Cory, what is like the 1 or 2 best managers you ever had?
In the restaurant?
Yeah.
In the restaurant? I mean, this is going to sound cheesy and cliche, but it's Zeke. No, he's a different guy, but he does things differently, right? So now this is going to be very weird, but
yeah, let's do it.
We talk like great wine, no rules. And to me, that's just like rethinking it all. It's like we're so entrenched with all the formality, the tradition, which is not bad, but it's all how we think about it. So great wine, no rules, just take it a step back and be like, okay, I love wine. Why can't I have it here or with this or this way or blah, blah, blah. Zeke is the same way, just as a human, especially when it comes to managing, where he just looks at things differently. Just because you're used to doing something this way, or you have to be this way, or you have to, manage in this style. He's just never done that. He's almost done it where it's like the opposite, where he's so different and he cares so much and he's so invested in the individuals in their just personal situation and development that there becomes this it's hard to explain. It's like this this really special kind of bond that forms in respect, I think, more than anything. And so I would say that just because he did things different, you know, he never fell into the trap of, oh, I need to be the guy to like crack the whip or to lead by fear or whatever. So
some of my best managers that I've ever had in my short seasons in restaurants and stuff like that were the managers that were also my mentors. Right? Like they were not just like my manager when I came to work, but they were like aspirationally someone that was like your ideals, your quality, the qualities and values that you instill in us as a team are like ones that as a mentor of me and someone in a superior position than I am, like I would aspire to have in my life.
So you asked me about, you know, kind of my kind of favorite manager, and I had Emmett Fox. So Emmett Fox, not only was he an amazing manager, I guess technically, but he was actually the chef and the owner of a restaurant called Asti. So it's an Italian restaurant, super fancy, but a little more casual kind of vibe. And it's in Austin. The name of the restaurant is Asti, A-S-T-I. It is still there, and it is still unbelievable. So Emmett, so I was, this is going to age me, but so I was at Asti. I started working there. I helped open that restaurant in 1999. I graduated in late 2000, so I was still going to school at the time. But this is already by the time I figured it out. I'm like, okay, the more I know about wine, the more I make money, and it started kind of there in the culture that Emmett provided. It was him and his wife Lisa that started this. He recently sold to an amazing guy named Chris. We were in town in Austin recently. Got a time, you know, was able to connect with him. He's awesome. But, you know, Emmett just made things fun, and he did things differently, and he cared. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. I've you know, we talk about leadership and sales and management all the time. And to me, I always refine it down to one thing, and it's just caring.
Yeah. Just like Los Cuernos does about the accounts and stuff that we work with.
Thanks, Rio.
No, I love that. But I think that's a perfect way to kind of wrap as well on things. Do not overrun too much here with it as well. So, you know, I think paying homage to the restaurants, paying homage to the managers that have had positive influences, and in a way as well contributed to this, right?
Yeah.
Contributed to the creation of this and to the
100%.
team that is developing. So, cheers to all the restaurants, to all the restaurant
all
owners, the chefs,
the kitchen people, the
hosts,
host, the house, the hosts, the waiters, the back waiters, bartender. If you've ever done a day bartending shift, you're putting in the work. Day server shifts.
Psalms. Love you too.
Psalms,
Exactly.
Got to sell people bottles, the pressure, banquets,
And to you, Rio. And to you, Rio.
and Pizza Hut.
Happy birthday.
One love, Pizza Hut.
and pizza. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode. Hope you enjoyed finding out a little bit more about Zeke and Cory. There is more to come on both of these guys. We could sit here for 6 to 7 hours and probably still just scratch the surface of what they've done. But hope you enjoy it as much as I do getting to know these guys as we develop this more and more. We'll see you in the next episode. And as always, if you like this one, show some love, share it with a friend who might like this, and share it with your friends and your family. I'm going to do that part again. And as always, if you like this episode, like and share it with someone that you think would be good to watch this as well. And as always, go get yourself some Los Cuernos.
Woohoo!
See you in the next episode, everybody. Peace.
Cuerny.
Yep.